This is for all you 4-Hers, FFAers, or anyone that just wants to show at a county fair or any kind of fair. Now, when you first start out with your showmanship demonstration, you want to state your name and where you're from to the judge. And after you do that, you're going to introduce your bird. You're going to tell the judge what breed of bird it is, what class, and what variety. And it'd be nice to know what year it was allowed into the standard breed for birds. Now, when you start with a bird, you want to typically work in some kind of logical manner. So, working from the head to the tail would probably be the best, or from the tail to the head. Now, when you first look at the head, you're going to look at its beak. You're going to make sure that the beak doesn't have any scratches or breaks that would enable it from eating properly. That would indicate that it was fighting. Like that. Then you look at the nostrils. You'd want to make sure that there is no discharge. That would indicate that it was sick. You're going to check the eye. Make sure that it's clear, no signs of cloudiness or discharge. You're going to look at the ear lobe. You're going to make sure there aren't any scratches or bruises, anything that would indicate fighting. And the same with the comb, scratches, bruises, abscesses. And you're going to be talking throughout your presentation to the judge, just as I am. You're going to be making sure the judge knows what you are doing. You don't want to be silent and just be looking over at your bird. So you're going to be looking at your wattle. You're going to be making sure that you don't see any bruises, scratches, or abscesses. If you do see anything wrong with the bird, you need to tell the judge to make sure that the judge knows that you know that there is something wrong. So now I'm going to move to the cape, and the cape are these feathers here, from like the neck to the beginning of the back. And you're going to check the cape, make sure that the appropriate feathers are there. You're going to pull back the cape. You're going to be checking down in the socks for any signs of parasites or irritation to the skin. And you can look down the back feathers as well. Blowing sometimes helps move the feathers out of the way. And this is called the cushion right here. So you tell the judge I'm moving from the cape to the back feathers to the saddle and cushion feathers. And then you're going to check the tail feathers. Make sure their tail isn't broken and that all the appropriate feathers are there. I'm going to turn my bird to the side, and I'm going to check her wing. Now when you're checking the wing, you're going to make sure that you have all the appropriate feathers. So these flight feathers up here are these longer ones, and the secondary feathers are these shorter ones in the back, but on the bottom. And there is something called an axle feather, or the blood feather, which is located between the primaries and secondary feathers. And it's usually a smaller feather, this one. And if you were to pull that out, this animal would start to bleed, and then you just have to stop the bleeding, of course. So don't pull that one out. And then you have these smaller ones on top, which are called the wing coverts. So mention those as well. And when you look at the wing, you're also going to look underneath it. You're going to make sure that it isn't broken. And you're going to make sure that there aren't any signs of parasites, because underneath the wing is a nice warm area. That's where you would find the parasites, such as the fleas, ticks, or mites. And so you can just blow. And make sure that the judge can see what you are doing. Make sure your arm isn't in the way when you do this. You need to make sure the judge knows exactly what you're doing at all times. So you're going to make sure that this wing isn't broken as well. You're going to feel it. You're going to gently stretch it out. You're going to make sure that there isn't any swelling that would indicate a break. Again, letting the judge know at all times what you are doing. And you're going to turn her over, or him. You're going to pull up on the tail feathers and push down on this fluff right here. And you find this magical place called the vent. Okay? Now the vent is where everything happens. The egg comes out, the poop comes out, and all the other stuff. Now this needs to be a moist area to ensure good egg passage. And you want to make sure that these feathers down here are relatively clean and you can't see any creepy crawlies going about. Okay? Again, the fleas, ticks, or mites. Be careful when you blow on it, because you might get a little bit of debris, feces up in your face. So make sure. And you're going to measure the pin bones or the hip bones. It's going to be like one. Or it could just be one finger bird. This bird is a 2-finger bird. That's good. She lays a little bit bigger egg than normal bantams. So you just tell the judge that she is a 2-finger bird. That ensures that she has good egg passage, enough room to pass that egg safely. And now that you've done the vent area, you're going to move down to the legs. Remember, chronological order. So these are the hocks up here, and then down here are the shanks. The shank, and then you have the toes. You're going to make sure that each toe is straight and not crooked, obviously. You're going to make sure that the scales aren't popping up. That would indicate some kind of mite infestation. You're going to check the feet for bumblefoot, which is a bacterial infection. You're going to tell the judge how to treat whatever disease you bring up. So treating bumblefoot could be, you could soak her feet in Epsom salts, and that would draw out the bacterial. So after that, you're going to check both of them. You're going to be thorough. You're going to be making sure that you are checking it, not just talking about it and just looking all over the place. You need to let the judge know that you are actually evaluating your bird. So then you have one side, and then you move to the other side, and you want to make sure that this is a relatively easy transition from hand to hand, so you might want to practice that before you show. And then everything I did on this side, you do it on this side. So you might want to go a little bit faster since you've already talked about it on this side. So you want to check, I'm checking this eye for any signs of the cloudiness or discharge, her nose, making sure there isn't discharge, this swaddle for any bruises or abscesses, this side of her comb for any bruises or abscesses, her ear opening for any signs of ear mites, her ear lobe for bruises and abscesses, and all the while you're going to keep looking up from your bird to the judge. You want to make sure you have good eye contact. So you're going to check this wing, make sure it's not broken. You're going to check her feathers, primaries, secondaries, axil feather, and wing coverts. You're going to check underneath again. Make sure you see nothing abnormal. So when you turn over your bird, what you're going to do is there's a couple ways of checking the keel, which is basically the breastbone. It's called the keel or the sternum. You can bring your bird towards you, tail towards you, and what you're going to do is press her up against your chest, hold her up here, and pull her legs down, and you just kind of lean back with her so she sits on you. And then you can go ahead and talk about it. You can talk about the width of the bird, the depth of the bird. You can talk about how straight the keel is, the sternum is. Talk about how in a laying hen, it's not particularly important that the keel is straight, as in a meat bird. You'd want it to be straight to ensure good meat capacity and proper growth. Now, and you also want to take a time to talk about how the laying hen needs to be leaner, not so muscular and hardy as a meat bird, because their body needs to be primarily for the usage of egg production versus the meat bird. You want meat capacity. Another way to do this would be to flip your bird over, which would be just, you make sure that you take her and you turn her upside down, and sometimes you switch hands. I like to switch hands. And you just, they might flap around, which is completely normal, and they might spit up. Now, if you flap around, just gently push her down, and you can rest her on your leg until they calm down. The best way if your bird to freak out, just flip them upside down, nice and easy, and then they calm down, and then you could continue with your demonstration. But you're going to check the breastbone again. You also want to be careful when you flip them over that they don't spit up on you. So hold them away from you, and then bring them in. Again, you just hold her, and then you can just start talking about the keel, the sternum, whatsoever. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pose your bird. Now, depending on what type of chicken you have will depend on what type of pose you should do. This bird is head up, tail up. So basically like this, and you can just use your hands to pose them. And so sometimes it's just a split second, like right there. Pose. And then you're going to walk the bird. You're just going to give them a nice little tap or push above the hot. And then you're going to turn them around. Now, with new birds, you may not want to turn them to the outside of you. You might want to turn them into you because you have more control. But she prefers to be turned on the outside. Now, when you get better at it, it will be more impressive to the judge if you turn the bird out away from you, so that would show that you have more control. And you guys kind of like tap them along, and you make sure that they walk the length of the table and back. And you talk to the judge all the while explaining what you are checking So I'm checking for lameness in my bird, which would mean she has a limp or a broken leg, which she had a broken leg, she probably wouldn't be walking. Now this would be especially important to check in a meat bird, such as the Cornish cross, since they gain their weight rather quickly, that their muscles cannot keep up with the weight gained. And this is perfectly normal. If your bird poops on the table, don't freak out. Just make sure your bird doesn't walk over it on the way back. Just keep going. And you just go back to the middle of the table, you stop her, you pick her up, you take a step back, and you say, "This concludes my poultry demonstration."